Welcome to Racing Across America for this Thursday morning. I'm Seth Merrill. Thanks for joining me. Joining me later today will be John De Silva, racingwithbruno.com. Get some thoughts on Aqueduct for this afternoon. A little later on, also Dave Rodman from Laurel Park. We'll get a little recap on some of the stakes action they had last week. We'll also get some ideas on Laurel for this afternoon as well. Don't forget, racing returns to Aqueduct today, and they kick off their winter schedule, and I'll be going Thursday through Mondays. I think Monday's going to be a very interesting addition for them because this time of year, it's just the racing schedule is very, very light on Mondays. So I think Aqueduct, I'll be interested to see how it shapes up after maybe the first 3 weeks or so. See what their handle is like, because I just think it seems like a very good move for them. But that will continue through the winter schedule for Aqueduct, Thursday through Mondays. And they have a carryover today, Pick 6 carryover, 24,000. Santa Anita today, it's 87,000 Pick 6 carryover this afternoon. The Eclipse Awards finalists were announced yesterday morning. No real surprises. Horse of the Year, the finalists, Mucho Macho Man, Will Take Charge, and Wise Dan. In the 2-year-old male category, Havana, New Year's Day, Shared Belief. To me, given those options, it seems like pretty clear it's between New Year's Day and Shared Belief. I thought Honor Code was kind of interesting, although after the Hollywood Futurity, it probably shifted a little more towards Shared Belief. The 2-year-old filly category, another one that's maybe a little bit dicey, coming up with a winner, but Crescilium, Ria Antonia, and She's a Tiger. And we're actually going to have one of the owners from Ria Antonia on the show on Monday, so you're going to want to tune in for that. We'll talk a little Ria Antonio and see the game plan is head down to Fairgrounds and face the boys. We'll get a little update on that. But Ria Antonia, one of the finalists in the 2-year-old filly category, and you think it's between her and She's a Tiger in that category. Or Palace Malice and Will Take Charge for the 3-year-old males. Beholder, Close Hatches, Princess of Silmar in the 3-year-old filly category. Older male, that's going to be interesting to see where folks go. There's been a little bit of debate about that. Should Wise Dan get it? Some voters tend to think the older male category is more dirt meant. And so there's a little pushback there. But the older male category, Game On Dude, Mucho Macho Man, and Wise Dan. Older female, Joyful Victory, Royal Delta, Tis Miss Sue. You would think Royal Delta, the likely favorite there. Male Sprinter is a category that was a little bit open this year, but I think Points Off the Bench is going to get it. It was a category that was so open. I don't think Points Off the Bench has a knock it out of the park kind of championship resume, but I think given what the competition wound up to be this year, I think Points Off the Bench probably the front runner there, male sprinter. Points Off the Bench, Sahara Sky, Secret Circle in that division. Female sprinter, Dance to Bristol, Groupie Doll, and Misdirection. And I was on the radio show with my Loose on the Lead partner, Steve Bick, yesterday, and we talked a little bit about this category and Misdirection. And Misdirection just is a horse without a category. She winds up in the female sprinter division, but she's more of a female turf sprinter. And there isn't a female turf sprinting division. So she doesn't necessarily fit in the female turf division. She doesn't fit really in this female sprint division either. So she's a horse without a category that is particularly appropriate. So I think voters gave her a little bit of recognition here, but I think in that category, it's Groupie Doll probably coming off of the Breeders' Cup win, going to be the front runner there. Male turf horse, Magician, Point of Entry, and Wise Dan. You'd think Wise Dan there. Female turf horse, I think Dank. Dank, Laughing, and Misdirection gets in there too. And again, as I say, she's a turf sprinter. So they put her in the turf category. They put her in the sprint category. I don't think she really fits in either category, but certainly she deserves some kind of recognition this year for what she did. And so voters threw her in the mix in both of those categories. But in this category, notable, Laughing, a finalist. Laughing, it was unfortunate, passed away. I believe it was colic a couple of days ago, just on the eve of getting announced as an Eclipse finalist. Laughing was, again, euthanized a couple of days ago. And to me, that category is dank. And I'm a guy who thinks I would love to see him put a rule in saying, you have to have a couple of North American starts to be considered for an Eclipse Award. You know, these years where the Europeans come in and invade the Breeders' Cup and wind up getting an Eclipse Award in the turf categories, just it doesn't seem quite fair to me, and doesn't seem to honor the spirit of the award, which is really for North American racing. That's what Eclipse Awards are all about. But Dank, I have no problem. She's had a couple of wins, one up at Arlington on Millions weekend, and then out at the Breeders' Cup. So I think Dank deserving there. Steeplechase, it's going to be interesting. We've had both of the Clancys on, Sean and Joe, talking about the Steeplechase division over the past couple of months as they ran some of their last big races of the season. And they shared the grade ones all year long, and so it's going to be fun to see where the voters go in this division. Steeplechase finalist Divine Fortune, Gustavian Italian Wedding, owner Juddmonte, Midwest, Ken and Sarah Ramsey. I think the Ramseys probably have that locked up, as well as the breeder category, which is Adena Springs, Morton Fink, and Ken and Sarah Ramsey. Trainer Baffert, Mott, and Pletcher. Going to be fun to see who jumps in and picks that award up. As it's going to be fun in the jockey category, Castellano, Rosario, and Stevens. Castellano on the numbers. Number of wins, purse money earned, clearly ahead in both of those categories. You would think he would be the clear front runner, but again, on Equidalia, I pulled up some of the Eclipse ballots that have been published so far, and I'm surprised the number of votes Gary Stevens is getting for a top jockey. Now, my sample is very limited, so it may not be totally indicative of the way the vote will turn out, but it just so far seems a little bit interesting. And when they announce it on Eclipse Award night, January 18th, certainly will be fun to see. Castellano, Stevens. Rosario also in the mix, but I think, again, with the time he had off in the year, I probably think it's more again, between Castellano and Stevens. Apprentice jockey, Victor Carrasco, Manuel Franco, and Edgar Zayas. So there you go. There are your Eclipse finalists. And again, the Eclipse Awards themselves a week from this coming Saturday down at Gulfstream Park. We'll keep our eyes on that as it gets closer. Article coming out of the fairgrounds, notable, obviously, if you follow the fairgrounds, this is a story that you're completely keyed into. Headline of the article, Fairgrounds, Problems Still Exist on the Turf Course. It was written by Marcus Hirsch, who was the correspondent for the Daily Racing Form down there at the fairgrounds. Notes that the latest problems on the turf came this past Sunday. They were expecting to run turf races on a yielding course. They did run the fourth race on the turf course, but within a half an hour, it was announced that the other turf races would be moved off, and jockeys were saying that horses were slipping on the far turn. That was where they already had some drainage issues. During the off-season, they attempted to correct those drainage issues. Not only that, they replaced the old turf course with some new grass, so there was high hopes coming into the season that the Fairgrounds turf course would be good to go. And in fact, the reports so far have been the turf course is improved, but maybe there's still some drainage issues. It is notable, between opening day of November 22nd and January 5th, there had been only 37 grass races as compared to the same period the previous season of 58. So they lost almost 20 of their grass races. And obviously, when you lose the grass race, the fields get scratched, sometimes scratched significantly. Turf races, typically bigger fields, and attract much nicer handle. And I mentioned it when we looked at the December handle figures earlier this week. December's numbers nationally were down pretty significantly, over 10%. And I hypothesized, I think Parks losing 10 days had a big part of that. But I think the turf racing taking a hit down at Fairgrounds probably had at least a little bit to do with that as well. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that the weather kind of moderates down there in the New Orleans area as we progress into the later part of winter, and they can get back on the turf on a regular basis down there. Jeremy Plonk with us yesterday mentioned this. Just Call Kenny comes out of the spectacular bid with an injury, a condylar fracture. Will be laid up for 60 to 90 days. We'll have to see. Injuries like this, there's always a little question mark. How do the horses come back? So we'll keep our eyes when this horse does come back, but it has been announced. It actually started to show some signs of soreness in the warming out after the stakes race, winning the spectacular bid on Saturday down at Gulfstream. Started to show a little bit of soreness, and again, eventually examined, has that fracture, going to be sent to have some surgery. Surgery was actually scheduled for yesterday, and again, the game plan is out for 2 or 3 months. Interesting story coming out of Florida, and again, this is covered by Matt Haggerty in the Racing Forum. He's their business correspondent, covers these kind of issues, but there was some other coverage from newspapers out of South Florida as well. Gulfstream Park and the local horsemen have joined forces on attempting to get a permit for a slots parlor in downtown Miami. They're going to team up with essentially Resorts World, who is tied in with Genting. Those, of course, the same folks that are running the parlor down at Aqueduct, and they're teamed up with them it's kind of complicated. You can read the Haggerty article and look at some of the other articles. I'll be interested to see how this plays out and gets explained a little more fully, perhaps. But they have a license for quarter horse racing down there that allows them to use slot machines, the owners of Gulfstream Park. And so they've now, again, teamed up with the horsemen, gotten the okay there, and then reached out to this Resorts World and Genting, the gaming folks, and they're looking for essentially an off-site kind of racino situation where slot machines will be run in a parlor in downtown Miami, but some of the proceeds will go to horse racing. Now, according to the article and some of the other articles I read, there would probably have to be a little bit of tinkering with some of the Florida legislation, because I think at this point racinos, as far as the legislation is concerned, really have to be located at a racetrack. So to have a separate facility with money going to the racetrack is a little bit different. But it will be interesting to see, again, maybe get this fleshed out a little bit more from the horsemen and the parties involved over the next few days and see how that works out. It's just a kind of an interesting situation down there in Florida with regards to slots. Also, just want to mention D. Wayne Lukas going to receive an Eclipse Award of Merit for a lifetime of outstanding achievement in the thoroughbred industry. Obviously, that resurgence this year has put him in the spotlight. I pulled up his career statistics. Career starts for D. Wayne Lukas, 27,500 plus. His number of wins, 4,683. So a long, distinguished, and productive career for Wayne Lukas. And again, came back into the limelight in a big way this year with both Oxbow and Will Take Charge. And as I noted a few days ago, they had the early nominations for the Louisiana Derby. He had 5 or 6 in there. So he should be alive on the 3-year-old trail again this year, but with Will Take Charge coming back, that horse is certainly going to keep him in the limelight. But coming up, again, a week from Saturday, Eclipse Awards, D. Wayne Lukas will receive an Eclipse Award of Merit. Before we go to the break, I got a couple of videos to look at, because we had Jeremy Plonk on yesterday, author of Countdown to the Crown, has that great Countdown to the Crown, horseplayernow.com 2014 preseason annual. It's now available via the internet. Still have it linked on Equidale if you want to pull that up. Very comprehensive look at the Triple Crown Trail this year. But with Jeremy, we talked a little bit about some 3-year-old action from the past week, and as he corresponded with me via email, he mentioned 3 other horses that were kind of interesting to take a look at as well. And I didn't have any video yesterday. I just wanted to give you a look at some of these horses, though, because, again, these are horses that are coming out of maidens or allowance races that Jeremy thinks could be interesting to watch going forward. First up, we have the Stretch Run. Going back to January 4th, 5th race at Santa Anita. It was a maiden special. We're going to watch Bayern get it done for Bob Baffert. Career debut, Gary Stevens on board, number 5 Bayard. This one was 5-2 on the morning line, but did not escape the attention of the betting public. Went off as the 4-5 favorite. Going to win off by over 3 lengths. Bayern is by Awfully Wild. The Dam produced a couple of siblings, sibling called Don't Surprise Me. That one took 9 starts to win and wasn't especially productive, but had another sibling called Rush In that won its career debut. then ran fourth, then won in the third career start. Russian is still racing, and in 16 career starts has had 7 exacta finishes. So as a sibling that has done pretty well at the racetrack, and I think off of that start, Bayern is going to be interesting to watch going forward, again, for Bob Baffert. And another horse Jeremy mentioned yesterday, and this one to me a little more interesting perhaps to keep our eyes on. We're going back to January 4th at Parks. That's why this one's interesting. Coming out of Parks, race number 5 on that day, yet another maiden special weight event. We're going to watch the number 6 Favorite Tail get it done. Favorite Tail comes out of the barn of Guadalupe Preciado. 6-5 favorite that day. Again, the number 6 Favorite Tail. Favorite Tail is by Tail of the Cat. And the dam produced a couple of decent siblings. One called Shimmering Crystal that won the first 2 starts, and subsequently in a career of 16 starts, finished in the exacta 9 times, and had another sibling called Vindy that won its career debut and finished in the exacta 12 of 20 times. So again, I think there's some nice breeding there, both top and bottom, validated by that career debut victory you saw there. So there's a couple of 3-year-olds to keep our eyes on off of their maiden victories. Bayern from Baffert and 40 Tail coming out of Parks just last week. All right, that's going to take us up to our first break. When we come back, John DeSilva, racingwithbruno.com. A little later, it's going to be Dave Rodman from Laurel Park. Stay tuned.
I'm Mark Cassano. Join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch. We'll inform, analyze, and welcome in the biggest names in racing. So join me Saturday mornings at 10 for Down the Stretch, right here on the OTB Television Network.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at capitalotb.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Wagering at CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Capital Bet TV, the fastest and easiest online wagering experience where you can monitor 5 different tracks simultaneously. 2. Capital Bet Express. Its straightforward program layout and interactive handicapping information lets you build your wager quickly and efficiently. And 3. Capital Bet Pro, designed especially for the professional horse player. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Hey race fans, head down to the all-new Clubhouse Racebook and get in the game. With live horse racing on more than 250 flat-screen TVs, state-of-the-art wagering terminals, fantastic food and drinks, an amazing Vegas-style atmosphere with seating for nearly 900 of your closest friends. Conveniently located at 711 Central Avenue, right off Exit 5 of I-90 in Albany, the Clubhouse Racebook is the better choice.
I'm Anthony Mormino. Join me weekdays at 9 for the Handicappers Report. We'll handicap the top tracks across the country and help you prepare for the day in racing. That's the Handicappers Report, weekdays at 9, only on the OTB TV network.
Welcome back to Racing Across America for Thursday morning. Thursday morning means a regular visit from John DeSilva of racingwithbruno.com. Good morning, John.
Good morning. How's everything?
Very good. Should remind people, every week we say racingwithbruno.com. If folks go to racingwithbruno.com, what products of yours will they find there?
I've been doing the fairgrounds, and starting tomorrow, I will also be doing Oaklawn Park.
Oh, nice, nice. And both of those, for me, are fun meets. I probably play more in the wintertime than any other time of year. I like fairgrounds. I like Oaklawn. I like Tampa, all of which have the 50-cent pick threes. I wish New York would go to the 50-cent pick threes.
Hopefully one of these days, at least they're making some progress to the pick 5 and all that. But Oaklawn I'm really looking forward to because, as usual, a lot of quality jockeys go in there. And that's the meet where nobody dominates. And if you look at 1st through 10th in the jockey standings, they might be separated by 15 wins. So it's basically whoever has the lucky barn behind them, the hot barn, will do well there.
Yeah, you're right. Most tracks, and particularly I do the handicappers report in here a lot of days, and Mondays and Tuesdays, sometimes there's tracks I'm not usually accustomed to. And one of the first things I look, who are the hot jockeys and hot trainers? And some tracks, not many, because most tracks, There'll be 2 or 3 jockeys that are hotter than everybody and a couple of trainers that stand out. But you're right, Oaklawn, that jockeys colony is pretty competitive, and it's hard to decipher any jockeys in particular that you really give a super big nod to when they're on board a horse, which then plays out to maybe a little more value because it just adds another piece to the puzzle.
And it seems like every year we have new jockeys coming in, like we have Arroyo coming in now, and the Silva's coming in, not my cousin, but Eurico's there, but Channing's going to be there, and I see Jeremy Rose is trying to revive his career and going back down there, so it's going to be very intriguing meet.
Yeah, it should be fun. As I say, I always enjoy Oaklawn, and they do kick off tomorrow. We're going to get some of your ideas for Aqueduct 4 this afternoon. Before we do that, though, I wanted to go back to last week when you made your regular visit last Thursday and just tip my cap. Last week's 8th race, we have the stretch run. And you touted Cape Cod Carroll, Irod Ortiz on board, James Ryerson trained. We're going to watch the stretch run. It will be the number 4, Cape Cod Carroll, getting it done as the third choice in here. Comes back and pays a little over $8, and Cape Cod Carroll gets it done pretty easily in that race last week down at Aqueduct. And again, your thoughts going back to last Thursday on Cape Cod Carroll.
Well, I like Cape Cod Carroll to stalk the pace, which is what Irad did here, saving ground and then being able to take over and drawing away in the stretch. I thought that the pace would have been a little faster, but I just thought that the way she was coming into that race, she was really ready to roll. And let's give Ryerson some credit. The past year, he's really had a very good year, and you know, it's been some down years for him, but he's really starting to pick up, and hopefully he'll continue that into 2014, and so far so good.
Yeah, and again, a nice $8 price there that you handed out last Thursday, so tip of the cap to you as well. We'll get some thoughts for this afternoon. Before we do that, though, obviously playing a big part in racing across the country the past couple of weeks, the weather seems to be moderating perhaps in our portion of the country. What's it like down in your direction?
Oh, it's a beautiful Chamber of Commerce day. The sun is out, you know, a couple clouds here and there, and going to be hitting a big high of 30.
There you go. And I was talking on the Handicappers Report before. It's funny how it's all relative, because yesterday I heard one of the commentators on the radio as I was on the drive home yesterday, and it's the truth. We had about 3 or 4 days of wind chills down in the minus teens, and so yesterday was 11 degrees. And by comparison, it did seem balmy. You kind of felt like, wow, spring is right with 11 degrees. So when we get up to 30, it's a heat wave.
It's unbelievable what we've had here these past few weeks. I mean, look over the weekend where we went from one extreme to 50 to single digits with wind chill in the minuses. It's just been a crazy year so far. It's only 9 days old.
Yeah, it has been, as I say, really affected. And I set up in our portion of the country, but really it's dipped down. They missed some days of training down at Oaklawn within the past week, although tomorrow, opening day, it's supposed to be a very good opening day weather-wise for them, at least temperature-wise, but certainly is affected. East of the Mississippi, it seems like everybody's been touched a little bit. All right, John, you got some for us this afternoon. And we're going to kick things off in the opener today. A $25,000 conditional claimer, non-winners of 2 lifetime. These are 3-year-olds and up, going 6 furlongs. And I have to say, this horse has had 5 career starts, and I must have missed all of them because I have not yet heard either Embrial or Durkin announce the number 2 horse, who is spelled Xixixi. But I'm going to be interested to tune in this afternoon and see exactly how that is pronounced.
Which race you looking at?
Race 1?
Race 1?
I've got. I'm sorry. I had Friday's form open. So,
yeah. So I was wondering
where did I come up with that? But so tomorrow's opener, I'll be interested to see how that horse's name is pronounced.
ZZZ. I think that one is.
I was wondering if they actually spelled out the letters XIXX, but I was wondering if the X's were ZZZ. Yeah, and I also wonder what the background story on that one is. But again, that's tomorrow's opener. I have now, and I pulled up Friday's form because it was much smaller and it was on top of my pile. I still have not heard an explanation why today's Thursday form was back to the tabloid size, but tomorrow is back to the booklet.
Hey, maybe they're just waiting for paper delivery. It was a little late because of the weather. Who knows?
I was wondering if there's somehow weather-related, and that you may be onto something there. It could have been a paper issue.
Well, as somebody who used to work in printing when I was editing the program for NARA years ago. We used to print the racing form at Sportseye. I could definitely relate how sometimes because of the weather and because of the paper, I mean, you're supposed to have a lot of deliveries, but at times, because of weather, because they're coming in from who knows where, if the trains can't get through and the trucks can't get through, it can get a little dicey at times.
Yeah, that there could be an explanation there. Obviously, there was some weather issues earlier in the week, so that could explain things. I wondered if they were going back to the tabloid yesterday, but no, they're back to the booklet size today. So, but now I've got the tabloid sized for today open and ready. Today's race one. That one's a plain vanilla claimer at the 20 level. 4-year-olds and up. They'll go a mile and 70. Give us your thoughts on the opener at Aqueduct.
Well, everyone's going to be looking at the Jacobson horses, and they're going to be getting bet. But I'm going to go against Jacobson with Awake at T-Wire. I mean, the Michelle Nevin trainee ran third at this level, first off the claim, returning to the third. We know Nevin has done well for herself since basically taking over a lot of the Dudgeon horses. Obviously not at the same success, but she definitely knows what she's doing, and she's got one of his former owners, Jimmy Riccio, supporting her here. And to me, this is a horse who should be able to come off the pace. We'll probably be a little closer this time, and I think can get up, and we may get more than 5-2 here.
All right. The Jacobson drawing away have Canturic. He also has the number 2 Grand Rapport. And as you say, Grand Rapport, I think, is going to take some action and maybe help Awake at T-Wire hold on to some odds. Second race this afternoon at Aqueduct, a maiden claimer at the 50 level. These are fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up. They will go 3/4 of a mile.
I'm going to the rail with number 1 Sunday School. This is a horse who, in an off-the-turf race in the slop, ran second, cuts back to 6 furlongs, so stepping up to the 50 level. Terra Nova's done pretty well on the end of the track. He normally has some horses but doesn't do this well, but he's having a pretty good meet so far. You got Eddie Castro riding, and that might be the only negative because for some reason the past couple of years Eddie Castro has not been the same, and in my opinion, he's blamed everybody except the person who needs to be blamed, which is himself, because he hasn't ridden great last year. He went to Chicago, did okay, but to me, he still doesn't seem to be the Castro what we saw from a few years ago, where he was up-and-coming riders, and I think he's living on his laurels right now, and I'm hoping that he gets out of that funk and gets back to what he was, because he's got too much talent to be at this level right now, not doing well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you go back to his apprenticeship down in Florida. He looked like he was going to go on to good things, and then had the bad luck to lose the apprenticeship, I think in December. It was right when the big names came, so it took him a while to get going again. But then he eventually did, and you still thought, well, as a journeyman, he's going to be okay. But yeah, you're right. Over the past year or so, it may be a little bit of a slump, so we'll keep our eyes on him. Fifth race this afternoon at Aqueduct, a conditional claiming event. This time the tag's $20,000. Non-winners of 2 lifetime. They're going to go 6 furlongs.
And I'm going to go with More Than Victorious. This is a horse who does well sprinting. And if you see, the horse does come from off the pace. It has a second 2 starts back at this level with Castro riding, going 6.5 furlongs. And then previous time it sprinted, the horse broke its maiden at Parks for maiden 15th, Montanez riding. Montanez has the mount today. I think there's enough speed in the race that they could take advantage and get up for the victory.
Very good. And got 4-1 on the morning line, so we'll hope that holds up and get a little value there. So 3 ideas for this afternoon down at Aqueduct. John mentioned at the top of the show the Eclipse Award finalists were announced. There were, for the most part, no real surprises. A couple of categories maybe had some head scratchers in there. I kind of think that's a function of the way they vote on this, given that kind of two selection system, in that it's actually a different selection process for the finalists as compared to the winners, which I find kind of strange. But again, there may be a couple of head scratchers in there. But what were your thoughts on the Eclipse Award finalists being announced yesterday?
Basically, most of the horses who are supposed to be there are there. I mean, obviously, what happened with Authenticity was a shame. No excuse for that, and I just will not understand how you could miss a horse like that. I know there's people out there who think Mike Smith should be a finalist, but who are you going to take out if you're going to put in Mike Smith? Remember, this is Jockey of the Year. It isn't just who wins the most graded races. You also have to win the maiden races, the allowance races, the claiming races. I mean, you look at the stats. Javier Castellano made $14 million in non-stakes races. look at Gary Stevens and Mike Smith, they only made a little over $2 million in non-stakes races. That's part of racing too. It isn't always about the stakes. You had to win these other races as well.
Yeah, as I said earlier, I've been scratching my head a little bit in that I put some of the Eclipse ballots that have been published so far on the internet. I've had them over on Equidaily, and it's a very, very limited sample. But I've been surprised by the number of voters who put Gary Stevens on top, because I'm kind of with you. How do you deny Javier Castellano in the year he's had? The number of wins, the money won, not only on top in both of those categories, but pretty comfortably so. I think it'd be really disappointing for his camp, and just, as you say, kind of the game in general if he doesn't get it, because he's been doing it day in and day out.
Well, I think the problem with Castellano, I mean, I'll ask you right now, who is the one defining horse for Castellano?
Yeah, and that's a great point, and I think that's part of the difference with Stevens. Not only is it a great story, but he did it on the biggest stage, obviously on Breeders' Cup a weekend, gets the distaff and the Classic as well. And so I think he's got the great story, and as you say, some named horses behind him, and I think that's probably been the difference for some voters.
And same thing with Rosario, because he has named horses and named victories behind him. I mean, with Castellano, yes, he broke the all-time earnings record, but there are some people out there who think he's a compiler and he has an agent who gets them all big mounts and all that stuff. He doesn't have the one horse that really stood him out, or the one race or performance that makes him stand out. And the other thing you have to wonder is, some people wondering, was he really the best jock? Because we had Rosario, who first half of the year was the best jock. And then you had Velasquez, who was doing very well. But he was able to take advantage of their injuries, and some people wondering, was he really the best jock overall, or was he just the guy who took advantage of those injured situations?
Yeah, and there's no question about it. Joel Rosario, certainly with that injury prior to that, was probably the front runner. So, and I think that explains why he gets into the mix here as opposed to Mike Smith, because as you say, Smith, similar situation, I think, to Gary Stevens, in that, as you mentioned, the numbers are kind of similar and had some high-profile wins, certainly, and is an interesting story. But Rosario, coming into the first half of the year, I think was so out in front, and then on the comeback, gained a little bit of momentum, so I think that explains it. But as I noted also, the day after, a couple of days after the Breeders' Cup, at some point they'll print out the actual vote totals, and I think we'll see things sorted out maybe a little more logically. You know, Joel Rosario and Mike Smith might have been pretty close when it comes down to the actual vote totals. A horse like Crescilium, I think, is going to be way back to explain why I think Ria Antonio and She's a Tiger are going to be overwhelmingly the top two, and then it's just going to get down to somebody just sneaks in a little bit, and horses like Palace Malice maybe gets an edge over Verrazano very slightly on the vote. So again, this kind of two-system voting that they have for the finalists and the Eclipse winners, I think could explain some of these categories and why some horses that seem a little bit logical are left out of the mix, and other ones that are a little more confusing get into the mix.
And I heard Steve talking yesterday about Verrazano, how he was surprised he wasn't in the final three. And to me, it's not surprising, because Verrazano physically might be the most talented 3-year-old that we had last year. But it seemed to me, and many other people, he needed things to go his own way.
Yeah.
If he was to get a victory. And when he was faced with any type of adversity, he didn't get the job done. So it's very difficult for somebody to say he's the top 3-year-old based on performance if he couldn't handle adversity.
Yeah, that's true. And a lot of folks made that point, but certainly after the Haskell, he was getting a lot of buzz, and a lot of folks still think that was one of the best performances of the year last year. So I could see the case being made for Verrazano, but as I say, it's not going to shock me at all if when the actual vote totals come out, he's right up there, maybe near Palace Malice. I think the majority of the vote is going to go way towards will take charge. But I think Orr, being the Kentucky Derby winner, will get a few, and then I think the rest will kind of be trailing. But it's going to be fun to see. We're a week away from the actual awards getting handed out. I think most of these categories you can put a circle around the winner already, but a couple of them are going to be fun to watch and see how they sort themselves out. And again, that's a week from this coming Saturday. John, certainly appreciate the visit as always. Again, folks can catch your selections racingwithbruno.com. Appreciate the visit this morning. Good luck this afternoon. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care. Talk to you next week.
Thanks a lot. John DeSilva from racingwithbruno.com brings us to our next break. When we come back, Dave Rodman of Laurel Park. Stay tuned.
The future of online betting is here, and only at the all-new CapitalOTBBet.com. CapitalOTBBet.com delivers a state-of-the-art wagering experience found nowhere else in horse racing. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Fascinated by the world of horse racing? Interested in honing your handicapping skills? Class is in session. Night school, Monday nights. Easy to access online. It's free, interactive, and informative for the casual and serious race fan. Horse Player Now Buzz. Live horses to watch emailed to you daily. Our eyes, your prize. Night School in the Buzz. Visit horseplayernow.com for details.
Each morning on the OTB TV network, you get the very best in horse racing programming. Weekdays begin with the Handicappers Report, where professional handicappers share their selections and analysis of the day's racing. Followed by Racing Across America, a daily conversation with racing personalities from around the country. Saturdays include Down the Stretch, where Mark Cassano speaks with the biggest names in racing. And Sunday mornings, it's Loose on the Lead, where Steve Bick and I offer news and a unique lineup of weekly guests. All here on the OTB TV network.
Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy Money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today. Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today.
And welcome back to Racing Across America. Thursday morning, that means a regular visit from Dave Rodman of Laurel Park. Good morning, Dave.
Hey, Seth, how are you? I'm thawing out down here in Maryland. I hope you are too.
Yeah, we like to hear that. We were talking a little about during the break about the weather. And for folks who are playing Laurel this afternoon, what does your forecast look like?
Right now, it's partly cloudy, and temperatures, I think it's just above freezing if I saw in the car, maybe 32, 35. 35, I think, is going to be the high today. Still chilly, but we'll take that over yesterday and the day before and the day before. The track, by the way, it's got to give some kudos to the maintenance crew here. I mean, while I was bundled up and headed to the car and headed home, I saw them out there last week, 24 hours a day with the harrows out, and they did a great job. It's in really good shape.
Yeah, you make a great point, and it is worth giving hats off to the crews at the tracks all around, certainly the northeast part of the country at this time of year, because keeping the tracks in good shape is tough enough, but particularly when you're in a period like this where, like last weekend, we had the crazy weather where you're down in the single digits or below zero, and then a couple of days later we were up in the 40s and then back down, and that's really what makes it tough, that fluctuating temperature. And so the crews that keep the tracks together, as you say, deserve a lot of credit.
You'll hardly ever see Laurel canceled due to track conditions here. I mean, I think you talk to horsemen all around the Mid-Atlantic, and they would say it's obviously one of the better surfaces around. A little bit more speed conducive, I think, the last week or so, and I think we'll see that on their stakes recap, too.
All right, well, let's kick into the stakes from last Saturday. 4 nice stakes races, and I've been very impressed with Laurel over the past couple of months, putting together these nice stakes days and doing so with some frequency, and that was continued this past weekend with 4 of them. We'll take a look first at the Frank Whiteley $100,000 for 3-year-olds. We're going to watch the number 6, Germaniac, get it done with a little bit of an upset at 6-1. Running second will be the big favorite, 40 cents to the dollar, Jesse the Marine. And Dave, with Germaniac and Jesse the Marine running 1-2, I think it continued a trend on the weekend of flattering joint custody. We had classic Giac and Roll in the Jerome, Just Call Kenny in the Spectacular Bid as well, and all of those have faced and lost to joint custody. So I think that one got flattered, but as we see here at Stretch Run, Germaniac wins the Frank Whiteley.
Yeah, you asked me about joint custody last week. I mean, I think he's a nice horse. Maybe he's better than I'm giving him credit for. But, this is the situation. Saturday we had, I believe, the first 5 races. It was speed go wire to wire. And certainly seizing the opportunity was Germaniac right to the lead, and credit to J.D. Acosta for going to the front. They were very disappointed in this horse. He mentioned after the race last time out, they thought he'd run a lot better. He's an improving horse, but he did use that speed to his tactical advantage, kind of like joint custody has in many circumstances. Another good race from Jesse the Marine. He just didn't have a duel in front of him to set it up as he did a couple of races back in capturing, I think it was the James Lewis, if I'm not mistaken, of the race. And a little disappointing in Mr. Rover. I don't know what happened to him. He just didn't fire his best shot. But that's one of the speed horses here that won Saturday.
Yeah, and looking at the past performances, Germaniac does look like one that is better when he can kind of get his own way on the front end, and he wasn't able to make the lead in that Marylander, the race prior, where he finished fifth behind joint custody, so improved with track bias on the weekend.
They still thought he would run a lot better last time out, so, he's kind of an up-and-down horse right now, but he's improving little by little.
A horse that ran to the odds on Saturday was Gracer in the Marshua. That was the next race, the next stakes race on the card. $100,000 purse for 3-year-old fillies going 6 furlongs. Gracer went out for Tony Dutrow. Came off a nice win prior in a little stakes race at Penn National with a very nice buyer figure. And again, went off as the 1-2 favorite in the race. We're seeing Gracer now go by the second place finisher, jump 2, and draw off in the stretch. So again, Gracer lives up to the short odds.
Yeah, pay no attention to the final 16th. The first quarter, the first half is what you really need to know about this race. I mean, this was an outstanding race, arguably the best performance of the afternoon. I think the second best. We'll see the best coming up in a moment. But she was right to the front, but another runner in there had kind of like rogue speed to try to kill her off, and they started to get into a duel about 4 strides out of the gate, and they went full bore. They had every right, both of them, to falter, but Gracer obviously had the stamina. Didn't come home that quickly because of the early fractions, but this is a real nice filly. I hope the race didn't take too much out of her. And when asked after the race the plans for Gracer, Tony Dutrow said, I don't know. So I don't know whether they're going to stretch her out to 2 turns. Try her there. I'd like to see her go long. I think she's a real nice horse.
Yeah, broke the maiden up at Saratoga back in August in the second career start. Followed that up in the Matron, running third. And then, as I say, that little stakes win down at Penn National now follows it up with another stakes win at Laurel. So we'll keep our eyes on Gracer.
Seth, both of those races should be noted with the addition of the blinkers on for Gracer. So that certainly helped her.
All right, let's shift our attention now to the Nellie Morse, which again was run on Saturday. That was race number 6 on the card. And I'll tip my cap to you, Dave. When we talked with you last week and took a little preview of these races, you said take a look at Forenzi Feeling. Fourth career start. The first 3, a couple of wins, bookending a third-place finish. Moves out of the barn of Tony Dutrow, and for the race on Saturday into the barn of Rudy Rodriguez. The number 1, Forenzi Feeling, goes off as the second choice at 9-5 and gets it done pretty convincingly in the Nellie Morse.
This horse is now 3 for 3 at Laurel, so like to see her do something out of town soon, but a big race from her. By then, a lot of the riders sensed that the rail was pretty good and speed was holding, and I didn't think she'd have that much speed, which she did, and she was kind of off the pace. And I said, well, she's going to be cooked by somebody going to the front, and so much for my best play of the day. But she did show, despite the long layoff, I think almost a year away from the races, and the barn switch, and going 2 turns after that layoff, that she's the real deal. I thought it was the best performance of Saturday afternoon stakes runners. in that she kind of sat off of the slow pace and then had to come to the outside and circle up outside. Got a little tired in the stretch, maybe a little green looking around, obviously, after all that time away from the races. But the most important point here is, I think we mentioned last week, she's really bred for the turf as well. So I'd like to see her make some noise maybe after, maybe another dirt win or two on the turf, maybe in the spring or summer.
Yeah, and you noted she's now 3 for 3 at Laurel, and you also noted the long layoff and mentioned going out of town. Well, she has been out of town once, going to Aqueduct. And again, she's been off a long time. So we go back to that Aqueduct race. When was that? December 2012. Finished third that day, behind Princess of Silmar. So,
right.
So we'll give her a little bit of a pass on the first out of town try, but it'll be fun to keep our eyes on Forenzi Feeling moving forward. And finally, on the stakes card on Saturday, the Fire Plug $100,000 purse, 4-year-olds and up, going 6 furlongs, and it's going to be the number 4 Broad Rule getting it done in here. A little bit of an upset, 12-1. The 6-5 favorite for Smiley disappoints, running 5th. Service for 10, the second choice, is going to run second. But again, Broad Rule, 12-1, the number 4 horse, gets it done in here. And Dave, talked about this race earlier this week. I said, sometimes there's horses for courses. This looks like Broad Rule, a little bit of a horse for a stake, as this was his second straight upset in the Fire Plug.
Yeah, he won this race last year. Just a hard-trying, real honest type horse. Doesn't always get the pace set up in front of him, the kind of track he likes. Underneath his hooves, perhaps, but Dylan Smith, who's the assistant to trainer Richard Small, one of our press box regulars now, by the way, is Dylan. She loves to play during the day and trains horses in the morning. She's one of the press box tote punchers up there. She's always been really high on this horse. Thought that he ran a good effort last time out. I think the key to this race, though, for Smiley, who looked to be the speed and pounded down, was a little, I don't know what it was, a little antsy in the post parade. The horses were at the gate. Here comes for Smiley, trotting up with the pony. It was just a little, just kind of maybe too sharp coming in the race and tried to bear out at the top of the stretch. Just a clunker from him. You got to throw the race out. But all credit to a real honest horse here. In Broad Rule.
Yeah, as I say, if the Fire Plug comes up next year and Broad Rule is in the entries, make sure to take a look. 16-1 last year, 12-1 this year. Don't let them get away next year.
Right, yeah, that would be nice. 3 in a row, yeah, we could see, like, he can maybe try to start chase Ben's cat in Mr. Diz.
That's right.
Winning somebody else.
And we'll have to see if somebody's running the Fire Plug parlay for those 3 years. If so, they'd be doing pretty well. All right, let's take a look at some of the action this afternoon. You've got 3 for us. We're going to kick things off looking at race number 2 today. It's a 20-25 conditional claimer. Non-winners of 2 lifetime the condition. They're going to go 3/4 of a mile.
It's a wide open race. I mean, at first glance, you would think Leeuwenhoek, the 2 would be the speed of the speed. The track we're playing like it was yesterday might give him the edge, but also use number 3, Dark Voyager. This is the 3rd off the claim for John Robb. He got involved in a hearty duel early and middle on the sloppy track first off the claim. He was beaten by a runner he's going to face today named Pushing On last time out, but he goes to Trevor McCarthy today to John Robb, and they're 3 for 11 together, that jockey-trainer combination. Robb hardly ever uses Trevor McCarthy, as you see, with only 11 starts together. I think he just thinks maybe that he can handle this horse and maybe not get involved in too much of a duel, or, just a little subtle change here on Dark Voyager. 2 and 3 maybe, the 2 to look at in there, Dark Voyager, Leeuwenhoek.
And both of them show some early speed. And as you noted before, that may be potent today as well. All right, 4th race today at Laurel is a maiden special weight event. Fillies and Mares, 4-year-olds and up. Again, they're going to go 6 furlongs. This looks like a fun little race.
Okay, when you chase a horse once and you lose, you always are disappointed. And you chase them twice and you lose, you're even more disappointed. But Gabby Gaudet, our racing analyst here now, has convinced me that I always should chase them 3 times. So we'll do it again. Number 3, Litigious, who ran a big race with the blinkers on, was almost a runaway, 3 back, and a couple of races back, just didn't run a race at all behind Runaway Dame. Fioretti beat her that day, and Fioretti's in against her this afternoon. And then last time out, they tried J.D. Acosta aboard. That didn't work either. but the fractions of that race are pretty sharp, and I think they're going to try one more time, maybe to try to go to the front, don't mess around. Boyce is back aboard today for Tim Tulloch, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I didn't mark down my late rider changes, but you might have it there.
Yeah, that's what's listed in the form.
Yeah, okay, right. That's what I have too, but, I print mine out like 72 hours in advance as soon as the entries come out. Nevertheless, maybe third time's the charm. The horses come back to work from the gate January the 2nd here 7 days ago with another sharp work. So I don't know what the deal with this mare is, but she needs to run that race back behind Addison Run.
Well, certainly Fioretti for Graham Motion is going to take a lot of action, so I think your 5-1 morning line will probably hold up. And that's the nice thing about chasing a horse. If they continue to disappoint, the odds can float up a little bit. But
Fioretti has a little bit of cheat in her, I think, to be honest with you. Royal Sparkle on the outside, first time here for Jose Corrales, is an interesting filly, too. Is a half-sister to Banditos Yankees. The Dam was a 5-time winner sprinting, and this horse has actually been here at Laurel since about summertime. It doesn't show the works in the form, but if you go back and extend the workouts out, she had been training here at midsummer. It was a little bit of a break. Maybe something happened. She's an interesting wild horse in there, Royal Sparkle, but litigious Wild Sparkle may be the two to look at to beat Fioretti.
All right, and let's finally go out to race number 8, which is non-winners of 1 allowance. These are fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up. They're going to go 6 furlongs. Your thoughts on race number 8?
Well, I loved Brenda's way last time out. I thought she'd go to the lead. She broke a bit slow, was in tight early down the backstretch. By that time, the race was pretty much over. Damon Dillon-DeBico, second off the claim, is going to give one more try here to Trevor McCarthy, who had a riding triple yesterday here at Laurel Park. One of our hot apprentices, of course, that we have at the meet, and hopefully she'll get a good break today and don't play the mess around and go right to the front. That's what I'm hoping for number 5, Brenda's Way. I know she's a better filly than the last effort, and that abbreviated 5.5 sprint, there was no room for error. And there were actually a couple of errors in the race. The start broke a bit, not sluggish, but just didn't get off as to her usual early footing. And then by the time they reached the far turn, when you get squeezed back a little bit like that and lose your momentum, it's all over.
Yeah, those short sprints, 5.5, as you say, you can't get a straw of hay in your path. You have a mistake, it's hard to make up for it. Dave, we talked last week, and I was getting from all of the guests some 2013 racing highlights. We had you on last week, but with the preview of the stakes action, we didn't get to it. We got a couple of minutes left. Just go back and give me some of your highlights or lowlights, but any notable events for you from the 2013 racing season.
Well, Gary Stevens' comeback, obviously, and winning the Preakness and Oxbow. On a more local level, Spicer Cubs race at Pimlico. 100,000 hits on YouTube, and a great job by the X-Man in maneuvering that runner after bolting a couple of times in between the starting gate and the outer rail with only about a 20-25-foot passage, if that, in between. And I think Mucho Macho Man winning the Classic by a nose, just a great moment that sends chills up your spine each and every time you watch it. Just a thrilling finish, kind of the epitome of what horse racing is all about. And locally, even going back to locally, I think the strong apprentice colony here in Maryland is worth mentioning, with Victor Carrasco up as a nominee for the Eclipse, outstanding apprentice in the voting. 215 wins, $4.3 million in earnings. But beyond him, Trevor McCarthy, who had that riding triple yesterday, Hevion Toledo, Chelsea Kaiser, just to name a few. The apprentice colony here in Maryland, very strong, very deep, and probably the deepest, probably in the 20-something years I've been here.
Yeah, you hit on one of the stories that almost everybody mentioned. The Gary Stevens story is really on everybody's lips with going back to last year. And I'll also mention Preakness and Oxbow. For me, one of the stories was just how entertaining the 3-year-old season was. And obviously every year the Preakness is right in that mix. It took them a while. It took them to the end of the year to define themselves with Will Take Charge. But I thought each step along the way was some nice entertainment value. And I'll go back to that Spicer Cub race. As it got to talking about highlights at the end of the year, I've since watched it 2 or 3 times in the last couple of weeks. And I remember he almost won, but I forgot how close. when you say almost won, he's right there after making that trip around the starting gate in the stretch. He just misses winning that race.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like the Fleet Alex kind of Preakness where you know what happened, but when you're calling the race, you're always looking for the horse that's moving, and he always looked like the winner at every point, even though with all that trouble, just like a Fleet Alex did, in overcoming all that disaster at the top of the stretch. I don't want to bring up anything negative, but I guess you've got to mention Hollywood Park closing and perhaps a bittersweet moment, tough moment for the year, and it's 2014. Can we get tracks to run big races like 5 minutes apart, 6 minutes apart? It boggles the mind, to see that, tracks owned by the same entity are always, post time right up against post time with each other.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've got iPhone software, apps, and there's got to be some way to get that a little bit better. I understand with certain circumstances with weather and whatnot, and late scratches at the gate, that things can change. But it just seems to me that this has been talked about for years, and maybe one month this year it'll happen.
Yeah, and that's been a pet peeve for everybody out here. And the Jockey Club has made comments about addressing it, and as you know, maybe with the technology now, that will become a little easier to address in a sane way.
It doesn't even really have to be, on a national basis. Maybe even on a regional basis.
Yeah.
Just something needs to be done.
And I will also tip my cap to you and the folks in Maryland, because one of my top stories, speaking regionally, I think the resurgence of Maryland racing was one of the top stories last year, too, with the 10-year deal being set and then things playing out during the year. I think Maryland coming back, and as I say, I think these stakes races that they're putting together on the weekend is kind of a signal of that, the comeback of Maryland racing, another nice story in 2013.
We know we've had a lot of good little turf 2-year-olds run that you can keep your eye on out. They have to Alternation. I've forgotten their name now. It's been a couple of months. Grand Motion. We've had some nice 2-year-old stakes, and just in general, the purses are better. And I think people are perking up a little bit, paying more attention to it, and hope they continue to do so. Naturally, this time of year, no turf is, sometimes the races seem all the same, but we try to perk it up with a few stakes here and there. We've had a couple of exciting runners, like Mean Season, for example, broke his maiden here, subsequently now gone to New York, and he looks like an exciting prospect, too.
And I'm still saying we got to keep our eyes on joint custody as well. All right, Dave. Certainly appreciate.
You better get a future book back. Bet on that one.
Well, actually, Gold Hawk is the one I'm really on in the 2-year-olds down in New Orleans. But joint custody, I think, could be a little bit fun. We'll see.
Okay, Seth.
Last year I had the crazy Mark Casse, uncaptured, so don't listen to me. But we'll see what happens this year. All right, Dave, again, appreciate the visit this morning. Good luck this afternoon. We'll talk to you next week.
Okay, Seth. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Dave Rodman from Laurel Park. A little earlier, it was John Da Silva, racingwithbruno.com. All of that brings us to the end of another edition of Racing Across America. We're here every Monday through Friday from 10 to 11 a.m. A little earlier, it's the Handicappers Report. This morning was Jeff Carl and I looking at Gulfstream and Aqueduct. Hopefully we gave you some good ideas. So cash some tickets this afternoon. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.